CBA negotiations came to a crashing halt today. We'll address that, what it means, and what we're going to do in the interim. But more importantly, we're going to spend more time talking about our navel gazing. We're going to be talking about our industry league drafts, LABR, TGFBI, Tout Wars, that and a whole lot more on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Hey, everybody, this is Jeff Erickson. I'm here with Fred Zinke for the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the good folks at WinBet. That intro is too short. I don't have enough time to retweet the link out there, so I'm going to do that right now after I ask you, Fred. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. I was really hoping that we could have this tidal wave of enthusiasm on tonight's episode and they've got a deal and let's go. The players are this, and I heard this guy might sign as soon as tonight, but none of that's going to happen. So I'm generally an optimist. I'm going to find a way to be at least not pessimistic about this whole thing, but
yeah.
So I'm fine. But tonight could have been a really, really cool episode because if they had come to an agreement by 5 p.m. Eastern. There would have literally been rumors by 6 p.m. Eastern about certain players and moves.
Yep, that's right. And I was ready for the fire hose of information. Said I'm going to go play tennis tonight. Not going to watch the State of the Union. I'm not going to watch the State of MLB Union. I didn't watch either press conference. I don't need to. Screw that noise. Yes, of course it's stupid that both MLB Network and ESPN cut short the players' press conference. Rights holders are going to rights hold. That's what they do. So I'm not really surprised by that. This isn't about fairness. It's about leverage. I'm not surprised, but I am surprised because obviously I tweeted this out. I got caught up last night. I was watching every breathless update going to the bottom of the 12th in negotiations. They're getting close. Okay. They extended it by today. That must mean they're close, right? Right. No, they weren't close. Such crap. I'm such a fool for buying into that there. Not just read Evan Drellich. Don't read Nightingale. Don't read Heyman. I don't even follow those guys on Twitter, but I didn't mute them. Now
Me neither,
I muted them.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. So I got caught up in it. Hey, shame on me. Do it. Fool me twice, double jeopardy, or whatever Michael Scott says. But you know what? My bad. Now I'm pretty cynical again, which is where I was to begin with. And we'll just wait.
Okay, so I usually like to cut to the chase on things like this. When will the first MLB game of the season be played?
June. Sorry to say that, but I'm super.
Oh,
yeah, dude,
June
it's not going to be too.
June 1st.
I didn't say June 1st. It's not going to be. Look, they said they're canceling 2 series, but they don't have any negotiations scheduled. They broke negotiations. They said it's on the players to come back to them. We gave our last best offer. Screw that noise. They did not. I mean, you look at the details from Jeff Passan, and they barely moved. The players have moved a lot. Like on the bonus pool thing. Mm-hmm. The owners started at 20, 25 maybe. I think they started at 20 and moved to 30. The players went from 115 to 85. I mean, that first of all, that 30 is more than 10. I think we can rapidly concede that. It's the CBT. They haven't moved in the CBT at all. And that's the thing that's the most noxious. I mean, both in terms of the thresholds and the penalties, they barely moved. They never wanted to get this thing settled. I think all the talk about, hey, we're getting closer and all that, they split out. They wanted to create this false sense of enthusiasm, and it worked. I got bought into it. Read the comments on any tweet or thoughtful post, and you'll see people don't care about what's the truth. They don't care what the actual facts are. They want baseball, and then other people have already made up their minds. I'm probably guilty on the other side. I don't know. But fact is, it doesn't matter. They're steering into this. They have leverage. They're using it, period.
Do you think that the owners through this whole process, do you think they don't want April baseball? Like that they would actually prefer to not have April baseball and save the player salaries?
Possibly, but I think that's super duper short-sighted.
Yeah.
I think there are some owners that way, that because they don't get much attendance in April anyhow, perhaps.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And they don't, but the teams that have a window to compete right now, that really have a chance to compete and win a World Series, I mean, that's devastating to them. You don't want to lose games like that. The Red Sox, they should be one of this. I think that the other secret thing here is there is a divide between owners. And unfortunately, the small payroll owners are the ones that are more numerous and have more control. You need 23 out of 30 to ratify anything on the owner side. And there's a lot more than 6 or 7 owners holding this up, in my opinion.
Now you're making me more pessimistic.
Sorry.
Maybe your June 1st is right. I was going kind of like May 1st, but that they take a couple weeks now and then I don't know. I feel like this all ends just when the owners feel like it's I actually feel like this is all going to end when the owners feel like making it end. Like when
Probably true.
It's their lockout, and when when they decide that they will budge ever so slightly on a few things. I'm not even saying the words meet them in the middle. Like when they decide that they will budge a little bit, then
meet them a third of the way.
Yeah, then it'll end. So it's just really when they decide that they want to do that. And if that's and I don't get on Rob Manfred. Like I know a lot of people do. He works for the owners. If they wanted to budge and settle, they would budge and settle. Like
maybe. Okay.
Don't you feel like he's just the negotiator in this whole thing?
Right. Well, he's not just a negotiator. I think he helped formulate the battle plan too. I mean, he's been doing these for decades.
Yeah.
I think it's like Peter Uberoth back in the day where, it's just like, hey, let's get in line. You got to stay together on this. Right. This is all that. He's not just a mere bystander. He's not just taking bullets for the owners. I mean, he is taking bullets for the owners, but it's more than that. I think he's an active actor. And the dude's getting paid a ton by the owners too. This is a job he sought. This is the life he has chosen. He doesn't get a pass. He is the face of everything. There's a lot worse behind him, but I think that he's an active part of it too.
So, do you think he could sway them? Do you think he has
that
level of do you think he could take tonight's or take the most recent players offer or whatever, what the players want, and do you think he could sway them? No.
Unlikely.
Right.
Unlikely.
That's where I kind of feel like that's where I let him off the hook a bit. I don't know if there's anything he could do if there's anything he could have done really to avoid this. I don't know, maybe negotiate all winter, which they didn't.
Right.
But again, there was no point in negotiating all winter if the owners were unwilling to really move on anything.
Well, I mean, just take a look at the owners and take a look at behavior and how many of them are likely to be behind this. Miami, right? Especially Jeter stepping down. I think that was a canary in the coal mine that we should have paid more attention to. You look at Cincinnati, absolutely part of that there. Pittsburgh, clearly part of that there. Colorado, lead negotiator in this whole deal here. Arizona's had cash calls before from their ownership group. That's St. Louis. They've been complaining. St. Louis, remember in 2020, DeWitt, I think it was, the owner of the Cardinals, was the one that said owning a club is not all that profitable. He's the one that came up with that line in the first place that Manfred just used a week ago. So that's 6 right there just in the National League. A's, Rays, Orioles, they're all on board with this here. The Royals, they're definitely on board with this here. You just got, I mean, there's at least 10 to 12 of these teams and probably a lot more that are all fighting for the same thing and trying to get a greater share of the pie. And, the lies that they say, they said in the last 5 years, it hasn't been good for revenue. BS. The only year it hasn't been good, the 2020 wasn't good. 2021 for 3 months wasn't good. Fine. Cause you didn't have stadiums at full capacity. Come on. Just all you have to do is look at the Marlins and the Royals getting sold for $1 billion a piece. And you can't sell me on anything else there that they're saying.
Yep. I totally agree. I feel like this is some sort of calculated plan to recoup some of the lost money by not paying the players for a while, like some of the money they lost during the COVID fan, absences. But but like you said, that's so short-sighted. If that is really the fact, or maybe it's not, maybe this is just them looking to not budge on anything.
Has anybody quit in any of your leagues because of this?
I don't know. I don't think I would know. Like, if anyone in any of your NFBC leagues quit, you'd never know. At this point, you wouldn't know.
Yeah. I have a score sheet league that drafts a week from Saturday, keeper deadline Saturday, and he sent an email today saying he quit
I get it.
because of this.
I get it. If someone wanted
Yeah.
to do that,
It's a bit
I get it.
dramatic for my liking, but I get it
Yeah.
at the same
I
time.
mean, if you're not into the thing I would say is if you're not into it, like if this is just frustrating, maybe the guy who quit was kind of on his way out anyways, like wasn't totally sure if he wanted to do this anyways. I don't know, but and was thinking maybe I'm near the end of my run in this score sheet league anyways. So I get
Yeah,
that.
but
No
don't
one's
wait
gonna.
until now. I mean, when you're this close to a draft, and you have to scramble to
I know.
find
Yeah,
someone. 24 teams, 35 round draft.
should have quit over the
Massive
winter.
keeper league. You
Yeah,
had plenty of time to quit then.
nobody's gonna quit in any of our industry leagues over this.
Right.
So
I sure hope not.
the guys will be really frustrated, but nobody's gonna quit. These are people who obviously deeply love playing fantasy baseball and fantasy sports, and some of whom make a living off fantasy sports. So like they're not going to just walk away over frustration over this. But it is we are like, we're not at the forefront of this, but we are among the many people who don't make hundreds of thousands or millions or billions of dollars who are being negatively impacted by this, because this is going to drive down interest in this really fun fantasy game. And it's not just us, it's people who work at restaurants and bars and all these things that we always talk about, and work at stadiums and whatever, and these people all get hurt from this.
Minor leaguers too.
Yeah.
I mean they're gonna minor league schedule. The schedule is in place, but they're all pointing to try to get to the major leagues. I mean,
yep.
And it's not going to help them a whole lot. Maybe it gets them they're ready sooner or something like that. But I mean, their rights are being kind of bargained away, as they always are in these negotiations too. So they're affected too. Broadcasters, everything, hotel workers. It's just everything is affected by this. So
yeah. And those are people who really need the money. Not to say that maybe the beginning, the rookies and things like that in baseball don't, because they may not have made much so far in their careers. But I mean, these are people who really need the money. A lot of whom have families and already in our later stage of life, and have less flexibility maybe than a 23-year-old who's just has to support themselves. So those people all get caught up in the wash here, and I know that gets mentioned, and rightfully so.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, that's enough belaboring the nonsense that is the CBA. Let's move on and talk a little bit about our leagues. Let's talk about ourselves, because everybody likes hearing us talk about ourselves more. But before we do that, a quick note from our friends at WynnBET. WynnBET is now the exclusive sponsor for RotoWire's fantasy podcast. WynnBET brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more are at your fingertips. Want a break from sports betting? Head into WynnBET's digital casino and take a spin on roulette, double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at Baccarat. WynnBET is currently available in 9 states: Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia, while rapidly expanding. At WynnBET, the possibilities are limitless. Register for WynnBET today, make a qualifying deposit, and wager to receive $200 in free bets. Promotion may vary by state. Download WynnBET now. That's WYNNBET. WynnBET, the exclusive partner for RotoWire's fantasy podcasts. All right, Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinke. Fred and I both participated in LABR last week. That is the LABR mixed 15-team league, mixed draft. It was one league we're both in, obviously. So and if you were listening last week while we were doing it, the 3-hour Behemoth podcast. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the live stream. It was really cool because there was SiriusXM was covering it. Ryan Bloomfield was doing a live pod on it here. I think Scott Pianowski, Michael Salfino did a breakfast table pod after the fact. I don't think they did it live. There's a lot of media going on this for people in the league. I got to say, Fred, I may not go back. Anytime we do a live online draft like that, I may stream it, because it was super fun talking through it with you and Jason and Todd and James and Ryan. I actually enjoyed it a lot more. It's like we're talking through the picks as they were going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought it was fun. I thought it was really valuable to have Jason and then everybody else who dropped in for, shorter periods of time. I know Jason was there the longest, but um, I think that probably kept us from having too much dead air.
Yeah,
Just
while we're
when we
making
when you
picks
get
and things like
you
that.
get
Yep.
really consumed. I think I could have done this now. Like, full disclosure, I was coming back from taking one of my kids to a sports practice, and that's why I wasn't there right at the very beginning. But um, I think I could have easily just talked and talked and talked for the first couple rounds, and then things get real, and then more things start going through your head, and then, by the middle rounds, I was really consumed by what we were doing. So
Sure.
I think having someone there, at least one, if not two people at a time involved in the conversation who aren't drafting, was really helpful. But I thought it was really fun to talk through it. And the one thing I was aware of, and if I'm being honest, is we were live and recording a podcast. So obviously, anyone who was drafting with us could have had our podcast on. I don't know if
Right.
anyone did or whatever, but I did. I was aware of that as far as forecasting my picks a little too much. If we weren't live but just recording, I may have forecasted some of my picks a little more than I did. Talked about like, oh, I'm up in 3 picks and I can't believe this guy's still on the board. But I didn't totally want to say that just in case, Tim McLeod was before me and Andrea Lamont was before Tim, and in case any of them were listening to us.
Right. I'm fully on board with that. And I was, at least you were at like at a turn.
Your
So
turn. That's right.
yeah, you only had you and Zach between you. I don't think Zach was listening to us because he even asked like, because I mentioned in the chat that you got swiped by him a couple times. He didn't know by whom. So
Gotcha.
that's probably a good sign. And you also commented, and I thought that was what really actually, that was one of the more insightful things is you were explaining your picks and you're like, well, I've seen that Zach has this, and that, I'm going to go this first and then hope to get that. A couple instances where you mentioned how I think it started as early as with Whit Merrifield, right? That you knew that he had Turner, so you weren't going to take Merrifield in the second. You're going to take Teoscar before Merrifield and hope you get Merrifield on the way back.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if Zach would have taken Teoscar, but Zach did take Aaron Judge, so like he was obviously willing to take a power bat there, and which makes sense because he had Turner, and I just guessed that he wouldn't. I mean, he could have. And in fact, if I had taken Turner second, if Zach had not taken Turner, I would have taken Turner and then went Merrifield in the third and just dealt with the abundance of steals as the draft went on. But I just guessed that Zach would be less likely to do that. So, it burned me one time later. He already had a couple starters. I guessed he wouldn't take a starter on a turn. He took Frankie Montas. I was going to take Frankie Montas, so I took Dylan Cease instead with the next pick. But I may have taken Montas going into the turn. Instead, I took Brian Reynolds because I thought, oh, Zach won't take that turn, that 6-7 turn. My 3 guys in my queue at the top were Brian Reynolds, JD Martinez, and Frankie Montas. And I wanted to get 2 of them. And Zach actually took the other 2. Like I took Brian Reynolds, Zach took the other 2. And then I had to kind of spin last minute and take Cease. But I would have, if I had known, like I would have liked to have taken 2, including including a pitcher. So I would have taken Montas. But so that one I tried to call his bluff and I lost. He stole Joe Ryan on me, but that was later in the draft. I find later, unless it's like a catcher or something like that, like when the guy on the turn's boxed in on catcher, like you can look and be like, okay, he's got 2, or he doesn't have any, or whatever.
Right.
But it's more early because unless he's doing an oddball draft plan, like the person on the turn's probably not going to take like all power hitters in the first 3 or 4 picks, or all speedsters, or all pitchers, or something. So I think that was, I think it's interesting it kind of makes me not want to be on the turn on either end, unless we're in a season where there's just someone I absolutely adore first overall.
I think that makes sense. I think that really makes sense. I'm trying to share the draft board here, and my sharing abilities are pretty mediocre.
Not a good sharer.
I'm trying to see if, I think, okay, Chrome tab. Here we go. I think I got it here. So now people can see the whole draft board while we're talking here.
Amazing.
Yes. Hey, old dog learning new tricks. That's this guy. All right. So you can see the board. Fred drafted second. Started off with Jose Ramirez, went Teoscar and Whit Merrifield. You went Iglesias at the end of the 4. And as you pointed out on the live stream, I was thinking that, hey, closers are slipping. The first ones went 3-5, 3-7. Because I've been playing NFBC all this time. I've been playing draft and holds. You pointed out aptly that the first closers last year were taken at 4-15 and 5-1. So you taking Iglesias as the number 3 closer at 4-14 is still actually early compared to at least compared to last year.
Yeah, this league is slowly getting with the times, I guess, in far as bumping closers up. And that Iglesias sale turn, I guess, was another time where I thought about Zach on the turn, and just going into the turn, I thought, well, he does have a starter. He had Aaron Nola. He doesn't have a closer. I'll get Iglesias going into the turn. And then I wanted Chris Sale coming out of the turn. Turns out he did take a closer on the turn, Ryan Presley, and he actually took a starter, which I was a little surprised about, but he took Jose Barrios. So I was still all good. But had I not taken Iglesias, I thought, well, Zach on the turn, that 4 or 5 turn, there's a decent chance he's going to want to take a closer. So I'm going to get the one I want going into the turn.
Yeah, that's right. And for people that didn't catch the intro, this is the draft board from the last Tuesday's 15-team LABR mixed draft. LABR, LABR, is the very first ever industry league or experts league. Steve, it was run by the folks at USA Today. Steve Gardner is the guy that runs that now, and it started with John Hunt. Now it's Steve Gardner. Both awesome people, awesome players. It's a great fun league. It's an OG. It's the OG fantasy experts league. So that's pretty. It's pretty awesome, and I enjoy doing that there. And it was a fun league last year. You and I made a trade in it. We've talked about it before. I may have mentioned it before a couple of times because I actually did well in this league. So I wanted to, we talked about it, but it's also the first one that we do.
Yeah. For me, it was the first 15-team draft I had done this year. I'd done a lot of 12s. It was the first 15 of the year. So looking at your early rounds. So, we kind of just went through what I did off the top. So you were pick, 10, 2, 4, 6,
yes,
8,
correct,
10. You took Kyle Tucker. I think that's solid. Good idea. You passed on Garrett Cole. I was not surprised, but Garrett Cole's ADP is such that he should have been gone before you. He typically is gone before you pick, but then you came back with Brandon Woodruff. So Kyle Tucker and Brandon Woodruff is great. Had you taken Garrett Cole, who knows? I don't know if you would have gone twin aces and still taken. Would you have still taken Woodruff if you'd taken Garrett?
So it's interesting you ask, because last year I did go pocket aces.
Yeah.
That was my plan.
And it worked out.
And the team worked out. I'm not sure going pocket aces worked out. I think you need to make sure, is it because I did pocket aces or is it something else? I think it's also just as likely because I drafted Teoscar Hernandez in the 5th and Sandy Alcantara in the 11th. And, there's other reasons, getting Emmanuel Clase and Fab and getting Adam Duvall in the 25th round. And of course, 2 trades worked out really well too.
But the pocket aces didn't prevent you from winning. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was Cole and Giolito. Cole,
that's great.
Mild, tiny disappointment. Giolito was a disappointment, but there were a lot of, as Ryan Bloomfield pointed out in one of his Bloom boards, top 20 or top 15. I forget which number he was. The pitchers. It's a lot of disasters out there. You could have done a lot worse.
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Giolito got you 200 strikeouts, an ERA of 3.5, a whip of 1.1. I don't see that at all. It's maybe a minor disappointment, but that's a plenty good season to win your league.
Did he really get 200 Ks?
201 strikeouts, yeah.
Well, see, I know. I like that you committed that to memory because you know what? You're right. 201 and a 353 with a 110. It feels worse because he had a couple of bombings. He only won 11 games.
Yeah.
I walked away with kind of it's kind of salty, but really, he got what I got what I needed out of him. You're absolutely right. So maybe I should have been more open to the concept of pocket aces. So no, I was open to it. I did go pocket aces in the first pitch Arizona Speakers League. So I'm not opposed to doing it. I've had some, and last year in the main event, I was 2 points out of the money doing pocket aces, and that was with Giolito and Yu Darvish, and Yu Darvish was an unmitigated disaster last year.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Okay, so you got Kyle Tucker, you got Woodruff, you got Xander Bogaerts, who I can tell you love this year. You've taken
because
him
I don't know if I love. I just love his cost. I think he's a solid hitter every year. He's the same guy every year. you're getting him at pick 40 or later, sign me up. I got him in the 4th round, actually, in TGFBI. We'll talk about that in a second here.
Which I think is pretty common. Like, I think where you took him,
yeah,
this isn't like a min pick thing, like where you took him like at 310, but it's above, it's earlier.
It's above Story. It's above Giolito for sure.
Yes.
It's above Olsen. These are other guys that occasionally go in front of him. So yeah.
Yeah. So, and then your Will Smith catcher flag plant, which I know you discussed with Scott, that was something you really wanted to do this year. And I think that's fine. Like Real Muto and Perez were gone. I think Will Smith is a good pick. I couldn't take him over either of the other two. But I think once they're gone, I think he's fine. And then you started, deepening your pitching staff with Class A. You brought him back for another season. This time you don't have to go to waivers.
I had to pay the price for him though.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. And I think your Freddie Peralta pick is really cool. I think Peralta is totally a good pick where you got him in round 6 and could be like a guy who could be like your, not the same skill set, but like your Alcantara pick last year in round 11, where, you get like a major, like Freddie Peralta is awesome. If he throws
borderline steal, I think.
Yes. I think 6th round is fair because we don't know what the innings will be like, but if the innings end up being higher than a lot of people expect, which is, it's definitely possible. Then I think that pick could be like, he could easily be a guy who's going in the 3rd round or something next year.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Yeah. I think that, and I kind of like the progression of Brewers pitchers. 1 year they're kind of hybrid reliever / starter. The next year, full-time starter, but limited innings. Next year, they take the training wheels off a little bit more. Same thing happened with Woodruff. Same thing happened with Burns. I do have Burns in a lot of I have Woodruff here. I have Burns in TGFBI.
You would have had, if you taken Burns in this league, you could have gone Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta. You could have just had all the Brewers.
I have Ashby too later on. So Ashby is this year's Peralta. A guy that gets the job maybe in April. Well, I was going to say gets to late April, early May. But now it's going to be late July. Okay, great. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe that's less valuable now than it was before. I don't know.
So I feel like your draft up to that point, that's 6 picks, totally like stable, solid. Then things started to get like a little weird. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but like now we start seeing the picks that are like, to me, like really could go either way. Like Cody Bellinger in round 7. That's definitely a could go either way pick, which is funny because last year when I was taking Bellinger in round 2, you were the guy saying to me, like, don't take Bellinger. He's not worth that 2nd round pick. And you were right.
Well, he was hurt.
He wasn't even worth like a 25th round pick really last year.
Yeah, but let's keep in mind, the reason why I was saying that is he was coming off the shoulder surgery. Not just an injury, not just he was hurt. Had surgery, didn't know when he'd be ready to start the season. You didn't know what was going to happen in terms of his swing. He's had a full, healthy off season, and now it's a longer off season. I think that actually it helps him even more. But there was, stupid little thing about seeing him take batting practice with teammates, seeing him hit the home run in the playoffs. I think he's healthy now, and I think it's all health that was holding him back.
That would make a lot of sense. And his career has been really up and down, but even other than, last year, the downs were like, oh my God, down. Yes. But overall, like in his career, the downs.
No, the whole last year was, oh my God. We won't even, there is risk.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I won't deny there is a huge risk, especially in terms of batting average, that he's never the same. That I'll rapidly concede that. Points that I like in his favor is he still runs a little bit. Still has power when he gets around on that high fastball. It's getting around on the high fastball.
He's in a good lineup, which is nice.
Could regain first base eligibility. Right now he's only outfield, but first and outfield, I always like having the 2 spots. That could be handy too. He always gets paired with Yelich. It's Yelly Belly, and I prefer Belly over Yelly. I would not have taken Bellinger. I would not have taken Yelich there. The back bothers me, and I just don't know where the power has gone. Whereas I can see it a little bit with Bellinger, I can't see it with Yelich right now. I haven't seen the evidence just yet.
I think that makes sense. And then you kept going with some guys who could really go either way, like Bobby Witt Jr. He's a rookie. We don't know when he'll debut and how good he'll do. We know he's really talented. He could certainly go either way. You took Giovanni Gallegos, who's a great pitcher, as long as the Cardinals let him be the closer. But we know the Cardinals have some other guys in that bullpen who they've messed around with in closer roles before, whether it's Hicks or Reyes, etc. We don't like, it should be Gallegos, but don't know that.
Right.
And then
before we move on, let me talk Gallegos real quick. Because I think I normally the type of guy that would shy away from him because he doesn't have the job there. I could be wrong again here, but at least I'm not doing it with Emilio Pagan this year. Haha. It won't get me 3 years in a row. But new manager, I think might manage the team a little bit differently. Talk about Jordan Hicks going into the rotation, perhaps when he comes back. They want to stretch him out. Alex Reyes had the job and lost it because of his lack of control and command. That's still institutional memory. I don't see Gallegos. I'm definitely putting Gallegos behind the rest of those closers. And, you're looking at that board, you look at all the other closers that went off before him. I think he was appropriately priced. I mean, he went behind Scott Barlow. He went behind Kenley, which I get. Kenley, wherever he signs, he's going to close. I'm all on board on that one there. Will Smith going before him. I'm all on board with that. But I think he was the head of the next tier. I think I take,
me too.
I take him definitely ahead of Trinan. I take him ahead of Barlow, to be honest. I take him ahead of Melanson, even though Melanson I know has the job. But I think he's a better pitcher. Maybe that's the risky part there. You can argue about that one. And I don't think there are any other relievers after that we have the combination of skills and job there anywhere close. Maybe Knebel, but I think Knebel, there's still guys that could still sign in Philly. I'm not 100% convinced on Knebel, job or health.
Yeah, I understand that completely. When you took Gallegos, he was my highest reliever.
Okay.
Like when I'm crossing him off on my paper and pen list, which I use, like he was at the top. I didn't have to go looking for him. Right. And then Austin Meadows was your next one. He's very boomer busty a little bit. Like he had one of the uglier 106 RBI seasons last year that you can have. If I wanted to throw some neat cold water stats on Austin Meadows, so he only hit more than 4 homers in 1 month of the year last year. His second half OPS was barely over 700. But somehow managed to have a 22 RBI month in there. He was awful against lefties, 563 OPS, looks like a clear candidate for a smart Rays organization to platoon him. But they let him play against lefties last year, but he didn't do anything.
Except for September where they started benching him. The more I dug into this pick after the fact, the less I liked it. In fact, I probably wouldn't make that pick again if I had my choice.
Yeah. So then after that, though, I felt like then you kind of went back to, after that point, like Meadows is around 10. So now we're into the double digit rounds. Everybody's going to have warts once you hit the double digit rounds. But now I feel like your picks were more like I said, like those first picks really solid. Then you went like a little boomer bust, Bellinger, Witt, Gallegos, Meadows. And then I felt like Dylan Carlson, fine. Like StatCast kind of says he overperformed a little bit last year, but he's clearly a guy who's young and on the way up and is going to figure stuff out, which will offset maybe any regression. Tyler Stevenson, solid. He's going to get playing time now on the Reds now that Barnhart's gone. He's fine. I really like the Tarek Skubal pick. In fact, if you didn't pick him, I took Ranger Suarez over Skubal. Barely.
I like them both. I like them both. I would have been happy to have both of them on my team. I really like them.
I may have taken Skubal if he came back to me. I'm not sure, but because I just had some other needs too. Once I took Suarez, I'm not sure if I could have afforded another pitcher right away, but I thought about it. Yeah. Donaldson's a solid pick in round 14. Like he's probably going to have to spend some IL time, but he'll be good when he plays. Trey Mancini's pretty, steady, solid type guy. So, I think after that, I think then through those middle, heading to the second half of your draft, then you just got some guys who can fill categories and should take, shouldn't really go, barring an unusual injury, shouldn't really go bust on you.
Yeah. Thank you. And barring injury is the tricky part here. Donaldson, Mancini. I mean, those are just guys. They're never hurt. We should be fine.
I don't think of Mancini as a hurt guy. The cancer's its own thing. I don't think of him. It is. So actually looking at him, his last 4 seasons, he missed 2020. The 4 seasons other than that, 147 games or more. So he's actually durable minus a period where he was out with illness. So,
but I'm going to do the yes, but I mean, the fact is, things don't.
The fact he came back and played 147 last year, and now this year he'll be even further removed from 2020. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a good sign. So
I don't like the moving the fences back and up. That's bothersome. But that's why he lasted as long as he did too. I mean, if you look at it that way, and Mancini. I waited on corners. You'll notice I didn't take a corner until round 14.
Yeah,
Donaldson, Mancini are my first 2 corners. That's why I wouldn't mind it so much if the Bellinger got a lot of run at first base. It would help my optionality there a little bit there. Compare that to what you did here. Let's take a look at what you did after we talked about the early parts of this draft here, but you after Iglesias, you went Chris Sale with you as your first starter. Is that a little nerve-wracking there, having him be your ace?
A little bit, but when you wait till round 5, like it is
That's
what it
you
is.
get. Sure.
I'm not that worried about Sale. Like he came back last year. I think he looked fine. I think he could win the Cy Young Award this year or just be okay. But I'm not super worried. Worried about him as far as injuries go. Like I think he's kind of back now. So I'm okay with it. Again, you wait till round 5 to take your ace, and you're either taking a slightly risky Chris Sale or you're going to take like a boring Max Fried or something like that, who is like your ace on paper, but let's be serious, like with his strikeout rate and stuff is like way worse than everybody else's ace.
Yeah, 100%. I get you on that. Of the starters that went after him, Gossman, I'm taking Sale over Gossman. I mean, there's plenty of risk with Gossman going to the AL, back to the AL East, and big contract. Definitely take him over Luis Castillo. My guy Freddie Peralta versus Sale is actually a tougher call for me, but
I think the ceiling might be a little higher on Sale because he might be allowed to go to a higher inning.
He could strike out 300 batters.
Yeah.
Maybe
not anymore, but 250. Things went well. And wait. And if there was no lockout, etc., we'll just suspend that disbelief. Pretend they're playing 162 games.
Yeah, right. So that's what I was referring to mostly there. But
yeah,
and when I took Peralta, I was debating between he and Fried, and who else was I looking at that spot? Fried and Charlie Morton and Lance Lynn. A little bit Musgrove probably too in that spot.
Yep.
But Sale, it was for you to come down to Sale versus Peralta. So I mean, I like the pick. Just it's tough when it's your first starter. But then again, you got a lot of strikeouts after that with Dylan Cease in the 7th round.
Yeah, I mean, I know Dylan Cease is everyone's cup of tea. I'm okay with him. I'm not super high on Dylan Cease. That's actually the first time. This was my 6th draft I've done, and the first time I've drafted him. So, because usually I draft Montas, who Zach took 1 pick before me, or I might even just not really be in that group and just wait a little bit, or have gone a little earlier or later. So, anyways, but I'm fine with Cease. There's a lot of strikeouts there. Generally, the White Sox have been doing a good job with their starting pitchers the last few years, including Cease. So I felt really good about, I waited a bit on pitching, but then I felt really good when I got Cease. And then I felt like I got Will Smith, Braves closer. So now we have the market cornered on Will Smith. I got him at the end of round 8, like 8-14. And I felt like that might have been my favorite pick of the whole draft.
It was a great value. 100%.
Yeah, I know closers are going to go a little later in this draft, but with how many unsettled bullpens there are right now, I still would have taken Iglesias in round 4 if I knew I could get Will Smith in round 8. But that for me, I'm hoping that I don't have to spend any money on closers in FAB this year, and I can use my FAB budget in other ways.
I 100% agree. And the fact is, labor being a closed economy, this is why you were able to get him where it was, where he went. He would not have gotten past me. Obviously, I took Gallegos in round 9. I was upset that you took Smith. I was proud of you, but I was upset too at the same time. Not that I'm paternalistic because you have a better record than I do in leagues, but anyhow, go ahead.
You took the Bobby Witt risk instead of the boring get your second closer early thing. That was the round you took the Bobby Witt risk.
Right. You're right. And I guess that was the last of the second shortstops that I wanted. I don't have any interest in Gleyber Torres. Kind of like Ahmed Rosario. Willie Adames would actually have been my next shortstop, and he actually went a pretty long time. I guess there's some interest there, but I just didn't want to. I think it's funny. We always talk about how loaded shortstop is, but then there's a drop off. Usually it's Dansby Swanson, but Swanson got priced appropriately in this league by Andrea Lamont. Took him at pick 87. Go Dansby, good pick, Andrea. Like that pick. I'm proselytizing in favor of Dansby Swanson this year. Vastly underrated. His ADP at 125 is ridiculous. He did exactly what everybody wanted for him. And then he goes up in ADP. Doesn't make any sense. But that's just me rambling on. You've heard that before. We'll move on. But yeah, I like the Smith pick a lot. And I would have happily taken him in the 9th round if I had not taken Witt. Jake Cronenworth, 3-position eligibility again. Always nice to have in these leagues. Luis Garcia, love Luis Garcia. I mean, I like this little stretch here of guys that you took. Luis Urias quietly had a really good season. And again, 3 positions of eligibility.
Yeah, that. I felt like it wasn't like really the plan, but when that started to become a reality, I agree with what you said on shortstop. There's a lot of good shortstops. Then there's kind of a cliff. I felt like Cronenworth was near the end before we really hit the cliff. That's what happened. I don't think I have any other shortstops. Like, I have a JP Crawford late, but like I don't have any other good shortstops. So I started Jose Ramirez, which covered third base. That's the other one you really got to watch as far as covering. So then to be able to get Cronenworth to have a shortstop, and then to get Luis Urias. So now I have another guy who can play third base and a second guy who can play shortstop. And then he also has second base eligibility. I felt really good about that. I don't think Cronenworth or Urias will be like amazing. They don't steal bases and everything, but especially with the DH with Cronenworth, I think he'll be in the lineup every day, and they often hit him high in the lineup. And Urias is still really young. I don't think people realize quite how young he is right now. I think he's something like 24. So, like there could still be some other steps up coming for him. And he played better as last season went on. I felt pretty good about that. And then my 12th round pick, I said when we were doing the live pod, I didn't feel good about it from a social perspective because it's Marcell Ozuna. That being said, like Marcell Ozuna, it's a similar situation to Aroldis Chapman and some other, not a lot, but some other players who are in these drafts who have had similar type of instances just a little further in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, Ozuna, Chapman, Bauer. I mean, you put them all in the same bucket.
The
Do you
Braves
feel comfortable taking or not? I don't judge you one way or another.
Yeah. I said when I took him, anyone who says they don't want to take Ozuna or Aroldis Chapman or someone like that because of their history, totally fine with me. The Braves have said, from a fantasy baseball perspective, the Braves have made it pretty clear that he's back with the team. And once he's back with the team, they're not going to play him like 50% of the time because he was in trouble with the law last year. Like he's either on the team playing or he's not, and he is. So I was happy. I think if Marcell Ozuna didn't have these like troubles in his personal life last year, he would have been drafted much higher.
Agreed. Honestly, I'm a little surprised that he is completely eligible now, to be honest, given what I read about it. But I also, my wife's a prosecutor, so I know a little bit of background on domestic violence cases and the penalties for first-time offenders. First time charged, at least. They're not first time offenders, first of all, but usually first time they get caught, they're usually typically pretty light. So even still, but even despite that, I'm still a little surprised he got off relatively light. But anyways, I don't want to editorialize too much. I want to talk about, before we move on, three consecutive Giants for you, rounds 16 through 18. Very interesting to me. Alex Wood, Alex Cobb, Brandon Belt. I liked all 3 of those picks. Really, Cobb and the most of the 3, to be honest with you.
It was just fun to take the Alexes on a turn, like the Cobb,
yeah, of course.
Wood Cobb was on a turn where Zach didn't spoil that in the middle. Thank you, Zach. So, so that was just fun, just because I can call them the Alexes. They'll probably be both in my lineup together until they get hurt or until they go to Coors Field. And then Brandon Belt. I remember earlier in listening to the Launch Angle podcast, probably like 3 months ago, and they were talking about Brandon Belt, and Rob Silver, I thought, summed up Brandon Belt really well, where he said, like, he's going to spend some time on the IL, but Brandon Belt has become, later in his career here, but has become like a really good hitter. Like when he plays, he's a really good hitter. 975 OPS last year, 1,015 in the shortened 2020 season. Like that, like if you add up those 2 seasons, I know he missed time, but that's 148 games played and almost a 1,000 OPS. Like he's become a really good hitter, and maybe he sits against some lefties, or maybe he misses some time with injury. But in round 18 in a 15-team league, like I think he might have, at that point in the draft, I think he's the best hitter left. I'm just dealing with the injury risk.
Do you think the changes in the park factor for San Francisco, do you think that's permanent? Do you think that's something that is going to be enduring? Because it used to be, Belt used to get killed by this ballpark. And now he's not. and other Giants hitters are obviously not either. But he in particular seems, if I recall correctly, really just got crushed by this ballpark, and
Yes.
that's no
Yes.
longer the case.
Yes. So I guess I'm crossing my fingers that it's funny because I took two Giants pitchers right before him. So I'm crossing my fingers that somehow Belt doesn't get crushed by the park, and then in the same regard, Wood and Cobb, don't get crushed by the park in the opposite direction.
Well, I'll say this: the current management team of the Giants is getting all sorts of mileage out of
Yeah.
veterans,
Yep.
and even some young players. Lamont Wade is the guy that comes to mind too, but they're really getting great seasons from, great great platoons, great half seasons, and it's, from pitching and hitting alike. Yastrzemski took a step back last year, but still,
Hmm.
they've gotten a lot of mileage out of him. Belt has obviously got done really well there. Wilmer Flores is a guy that's flourished in his role. And on the pitching side, obviously Gossman, Desclafani, Alex Wood, who you took, and I think a lot of people are comparing Cobb to Gossman. I don't think it's maybe the same sort of ceiling, but I think there's a lot of upside if you get a healthy season at Alex Cobb.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know if he can go where Gossman was. We'll see. Maybe, but I
Yeah.
don't know. He's not traditionally like a really low whip guy, Cobb, and that kind of limits the ceiling. And not a really high strikeout guy, but I think Cobb and Wood could. It's just a matter of how many innings they throw. I think they can be about a strikeout an inning. ERAs in the mid threes, whips that are solid, like 1.2 ish, something like that. They'll win plenty of games on San Fran. It's just a matter of how healthy those guys can stay and how many innings they can throw.
Right. We're talking about the 15-team mixed league labor draft that happened last Tuesday. If you want to see the grid and you're not streaming right now with us and you're hearing on a podcast, you can check it out a couple different ways. You can check out my article about reviewing the draft on rotowire.com. And if you don't already subscribe to RotoWire, get a free 10-day trial, rotowire.com/try, TRY. And for that matter, the article is free, and I've tweeted out the article, but I've also tweeted a lot lately. You can also just tweet at me or DM me at Jeff_Erickson. I'll share the grid with you too, and I'm sure Fred will do the same at Fred Zinkie. That's Zinkie MLB. Hopefully, it doesn't autocorrect to Pinky like it did for me at one time. But we're going to move on from the labor draft and talk about both Tout Wars and TGFBI, which are ongoing. But first, commercial note from our friends at Thrive. Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is an exciting player prop fantasy contest. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only the top tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up for Thrive Fantasy today and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Here's how you claim your free RotoWire subscription. 1, visit rotowire.com/thrive. 2, deposit a minimum of $10 and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. And 3, play in your first paid contest and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Thanks to Thrive. Also, quick moment here for our friends with the Blue Wire Network. All right. We've had the Blue Wire Network with us all along, hosting all of our podcasts. So we want to thank them for their sponsorship and the sponsors there. Please patronize them as well. Let's move on. Let's talk a little Tout Wars. First of all, Fred, you are doing Tout Wars Draft-and-Hold. Despite being the 2-time defending NL Tout Wars champion. Why is that?
Because I'm also a dad, and sometimes we have
Yes.
sometimes those things take priority. So I'm not the type of guy usually to cut and run on a league.
Mm-hmm.
And so I jumped out of, so I was in the mixed league, and I jumped out of that one because I started doing some leagues with Jeff Zimmerman, who's in the mixed league. So one of us I felt like needed to get out of that league, so we weren't together since we were cooperating in some other leagues. So I went to the NL, played it twice. Was fortunate enough to win it both times. This year, the weekend that the Tout Wars auctions are happening, one of my sons has a hockey tournament. It will be this particular son's first ever sleepover at a hotel
Ooh,
hockey tournament.
that's big.
My older son probably has, and I'm not exaggerating, 10 sleepover hockey tournaments a year. And my younger son, it's his first one. And I take the older son to all of those. So I felt like I've probably been to, I don't even know how many, close to 50 with the older one. I can't bail on the younger one for his first one. I got to be there. I got to take him.
Yeah, of
So
course.
so I jumped to the draft and hold, which works really well for me right now because it's one of the ones that wasn't that weekend. And I've done a bunch of draft and hold leagues this year. So and everybody talks about how I trade so much. So I was like, you know what? This will be a neat challenge. I'm going to try to win this league where you
Without
can't
trading,
trade.
taking
Yeah,
away
no,
one of your superpowers. That's interesting. By the way, I
yes.
can relate. 1 year in Tout weekend, I did the AL Tout Wars. Usually I'm the auctioneer for the mixed. I'm around on Sunday too. Instead, I took off right away because my daughter had a big AYSO
Yeah.
tournament on Sunday. And so I missed a lot of the activities. Worth it. It was, first of all, it's just like tournament we never qualified for. So it was
Okay.
really awesome to be able to make that. So that was pretty cool. So completely good job. Good parenting points. I highly approve of this
I
message.
fully hope to, like, long range plans. I hope next year to jump back into one of those live auctions. I also think that I'm like just assessing myself as a fantasy manager. I actually think I'm better at auctions than I am at drafts.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons that I've often done better at tout than I have in labor. Um, so I'm hoping next year that I can get back into one of those leagues. We'll see. It's a long way away.
Very good. All
Yeah.
right. So, and I like that you're challenging yourself. So that's good.
Yeah.
So now we are sharing the screen. If you're streaming with us, you are looking at the Tout Wars Draft and Hold League. It is 15 teams. It is also OBP instead of batting average. Big difference there. It is also, this is draft and hold. There are no free agents. There's no trades, as you alluded. You're going 50 rounds. You're trying to get it's tantamount to the NFBC Draft Champions, albeit no overall contest, just a standalone league. Any other? Am I missing any other differences?
No, the OBP is, I think, a huge difference.
Massive.
I find the OBP. I actually really like it. I know some people resisted it when you guys brought it into tout. I'll tell you two reasons why I like it. One is I think as you start converting your SGPs, like it depends how you do your rankings, but if you have projections and you start converting your list over from a batting average league to an OBP league, what you find is the better hitters, the better players start rising up your list. The guys who draw a lot of walks, like Bryce Harper in this league went 6th. Vlad Guerrero slipped all the way to 7th, but in all honesty, I had him when I did my rankings, he was like 2nd or 3rd-ish on the list. I felt like he could have gone anywhere up there because he draws plenty of walks. So some of these guys, Aaron Judge got into the 2nd round, and it punishes the guys who don't draw walks, and that's good, I think, because we see some of these guys, like I love taking Whit Merrifield in the 2nd or 3rd round in a regular fantasy league, but come on, Whit Merrifield's like not that good of a player. We're just chasing the steals. He's going to go a little later in this league because he doesn't really get on base very well. Tim Anderson, same thing, will probably go a little later for the same reason. So I like the OBP for that reason. The other reason I like it, and this is not a shot at the NFBC, and I'm not taking that shot because I know some of the NFBC guys are a little thin-skinned with loving the NFBC so much, but
so you're kind of taking a shot now.
A little bit. It's become very sanitized, and what I mean by that is the NFBC ADP list is so good. Like, it's so good. You could draft from it. Like, you could totally draft from it. I don't draft from it. You don't draft from it. I don't like to do that, but that list is really good. If you just
But I refer to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody
100%.
does. And it's a guideline. And I've said that when we've been talking in the off season many times, like you do your projections and then you see where your projections differ, like where your rankings differ wildly from ADP. And then you start reining yourself in and thinking, am I crazy on these guys? Should I be, am I missing something? And it's a guidebook. And again, you could absolutely take those ADP rankings, draft your league, and have a pretty good chance to do well in the league. And that's fine, but it dumbs it down a little bit. I don't love that. So what I like about this is there are no ADP rankings for on base percentage leagues. So
Right.
now we're like, you can use the NFBC ADP if you want to do this draft, but it's not going to be good. Like
You
that's
leave your
not what you
friends
want.
behind. Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Like, for example, not to, give all the answers away, but I took Trey Turner 5th overall, and some people on Twitter immediately were like, oh my gosh, Trey Turner 5th overall. And if I get Trey Turner 5th overall in an NFBC league, I'd be doing cartwheels. But in this league, once you run the numbers, Trey Turner's not a low walk. He's not a low walk guy, but he's not a high walk guy. So I'll be honest, in my rankings, Vlad Guerrero is ahead of Trey Turner. Now, I took Trey Turner because I like the multi-position eligibility. I like addressing shortstop early, and I like getting some steals. And his OBP is not bad. But Vlad jumps Trey Turner in my rankings, and once we convert to OBP, I love how there's no guidebook for Tout Wars because it's an OBP league, and those aren't the leagues that everyone's doing. So there isn't a good ADP list out there. Like, I love that. So now you have to do the work yourself.
Yep. 100%. I do like that
So,
a lot.
and I know that, like I said, I know some NFBC. Like, I love the NFBC. I play tons of it. Like I said, I was in the main event last year. It's really great competition, but that amazing ADP list that has so many, intelligent minds chipping into it, it does make it so that, like it is a guidebook for drafting NFBC.
For sure.
Yeah.
An argument against using OBP, by the way, is
Yeah.
that it kind of double counts the sluggers. Because
It
let's face
does.
it, those are the guys that are going
But
to walk the most.
yes, but we have got to a point where steals are so scarce and then so prioritized, and we do have these guys like
Right.
Starling Marte and Whit Merrifield going in the second
Right.
round, which it doesn't equate at all to how valuable they are as baseball players. They're good baseball players, but they're not
Right.
great baseball players. So so almost double counting the sluggers. Like I didn't take Aaron Judge. It was kind of cool to see Aaron Judge maybe go in the second round, and we're going to see some probably good hitters go a little bit earlier in this draft, and some of the steals. You still need the steals in this league. Those guys are still going to go fairly early, but I don't mind that.
Counter argument is those steals guys are better defenders typically.
That's true. Some of them.
So not that we play fantasy defense.
No.
In most leagues, unless you do score sheet or strat or something like that.
Yeah.
But they are that's part of what it encompasses what makes a better ball player. Then you get Mike Trout, who's a perfect human being, and then it's fine because he still plays good defense. Not as good as he used to, but it's still pretty good defense. Also,
he slipped to pick 10 to Nando DeFino, Mike Trout. Where would you take Mike Trout in an OBP league? Like looking at this draft board, do you think he's a really interesting one? Because I'm just not taking him in the batting average leagues just because of the injury risk. But man, in an OBP league, he could be.
I'm taking him ahead of. So Mike Sheets took Ronald Acuna 9. I take Trout ahead of him here because you've got the similar injury risk in Acuna as you do in Trout. So I don't see any reason to discount Trout over Acuna.
Acuna's though in his own right is become a really good OBP guy.
Yeah, he's getting a lot better without a doubt.
Close to 400 the last I think he was
because now because he's getting pitched around and he's got a better eye, of course.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get him to chase and he's not chasing as much. So he's become a better pure hitter without a doubt.
What about Trout or Bo Bichette? Because the gap in now this is where the OBP is a huge deal. Like in batting average, Bo Bichette will be the same-ish as Trout. Like they'll be in the same range for batting average.
I think there's OBP growth potential in Bichette, though. I mean, this kind of
isn't
this kind of a go where the puck is moving sort of thing instead of where it's been, because you're talking about Bichette in what year 3.5, 3.5, and you went from 328 to 343 last year while maintaining the same batting average. He walked,
a little bit
he walked 40 times last year. Percentage was, I'm pulling up his page a little bit here. Yeah, I mean, he jumped from He jumped. He went from 4% to 6% in walk rate. He's nowhere near, but what if he goes up to 8% walk rate there? It's starting to become a little bit more valuable as he perhaps gets pitched around a little bit more. Although maybe he doesn't, given the other batters in that Toronto lineup. I mean, that's the thing that, still lets him get pitched to a lot more. I don't know.
But a typical Trout season in the last 5 or 6 years is like a 440 OBP. Mm-hmm. So that's like Bo Bichette's not like the gap between those two guys now and on base percentages, even if Bichette grows a little bit, the gap's going to be enormous, which now offsets the fact that Trout doesn't steal bases. Yeah. It's an interesting one. Trout's much more powerful.
Yeah.
So
and he is like a cheat code in OBP. I mean,
Yes, if he plays, Nando's really, even if he doesn't steal bases, right? Like Juan Soto went first because he can get you that OBP that's like 430 or something like that. Well, Trout's the other guy who can do that. Juan Soto doesn't steal a lot of bases. Trout, a few. Trout doesn't steal a lot of bases. Trout probably will hit more home runs if he's healthy than Soto. Like Trout could easily be if Trout plays 150 games, even without the steals, he could be the number one player in this format.
Yeah. Judge is pretty close too on OBP, by the way. I think, and I play in the AL tout, so I've been kind of acutely aware of that. But if you look at Judge's OBP over the years, I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. So last year it kind of dropped off a little bit, or 2 years ago dropped off a little bit, but he's still another guy that's pretty darn awesome as far as that goes too. So, and of course Joey Votto later on. I don't want to spoil, your fellow competitors might not know that Joey Votto is a good OBP guy, but I'm just going to let it slip in case they're paying attention.
Hopefully they haven't heard of him. Maybe
Yeah.
they haven't heard of him.
I know you've heard of Joey Votto, blah, blah, blah.
I sure
we don't
have.
want to go into that again, but
I'm not drafting. Oh, I could draft him in this league because I can't trade him.
Yeah, that's right. So you took Jacob deGrom in the second round. That's aggressive. Took him, but then again, Woodruff is gone. Scherzer's gone. Wheeler's gone. Buehler's gone. Bieber was gone. That was interesting. Alcantara was the next starter after that. The only other starter after that's been taken. I don't think Alcantara is in the same universe as deGrom. So, if you're going to take a starter there, I'm okay with deGrom in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, if
nice of me to say that.
Yeah, Alcantara or Alcantara, he went quite early to Jock Thompson right after I took deGrom. If we went by ADP, the next pitcher on the board would be who was still undrafted, would have been Aaron Nola, who's still
there's a gap there. Yeah, you still might take Nola. You could do it.
I could on the way back.
Do it.
I might. I'm not against it. So the draft board's unfolded, I think, in a really interesting way. And I think a lot of people listening to this podcast have probably done a lot of draft champions over the winter because that's pretty popular in January and February. And so we know how high saves are going.
Yeah.
I felt like deGrom was the last pitcher in that second round type tier. Like he typically goes in with Wheeler, Scherzer, Buehler, Woodruff. So they all went. We actually had a run of 9 straight picks with pitchers. deGrom was just past the middle of that run. I obviously get the injury risk with deGrom. I saw some people discussing on Twitter, and Jeff Zimmerman jumped in with a really great point about this, where I think it was Andy Behrens and someone else. I forget who exactly off the top of my head. I apologize, but they were saying that someone said deGrom will either be like pitcher number 1 or pitcher number 150. And Jeff pointed out, no, he might pitch 2/3 of the season and be pitcher number 7. Because just the fact, he's not going to just start the season fine and be fine all season or get hurt in spring training. Those aren't the only two possibilities.
It's not binary. You're right.
That's right. So, and that's kind of how I try to project him. If he throws 130 innings, again, speaking as though we'll have a full season. If he throws 130 innings or something, where would that be? Because he's clearly the best player in fantasy baseball.
Yep.
If he made 30 starts, he's going to be number 1 and pitches like he has the last 2 or 3 years. He's the best. So anyways, I took him. I didn't take one of the relievers. Since I picked Liam Hendricks and Josh Hader, both went in round 2. Raisel Iglesias went with the first pick in round 3. I kind of wish Matt Williams on the turn had taken Iglesias first instead of Starling Marte. Just
to have them all in a row. Yeah.
It would have been cool to have those 3. Then we could have said 3 relievers went in round 2. So now I don't know. I've got 3 more picks until I go. I don't think I'm taking a reliever now. I don't think I can justify any of the other relievers in round 3. So Nola could still be there. I consider him, or I take a bat. And there's lots of bats left. Teoscar's left, and if I want to go with the steals guys with the lower OBPs, but I have Trey Turner. But if I wanted to go to one of those guys like Whit Merrifield, they're left. So there's a lot of those guys left if I wanted to get someone like that. Or I could take Nola. I don't know. I don't know if Nola will make it through 3 more picks. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Indeed.
I thought this room might not have been quite this pitcher heavy, but it was.
It is. That's for sure. Well, I'll say, it's interesting. I think there's some veteran NFBC players in this room.
Yes.
James Anderson, Vlad Sedler.
Yes.
Brad Johnson certainly has played the format a lot. Matt Williams won the league last year. So, I mean, you start from there. Toby, bat flip crazies in your league. And so, yeah.
Who likes pitchers and has taken a couple of them already.
He's known for coining the term pocket aces, for crying out loud.
Yeah. His other pocket ace right now is Liam Hendricks. So,
yeah.
But I will, and James might be listening since obviously he's part of the brand, but I was hoping he would take DeGrom and then I would take Zach Wheeler. Not because really I don't want Wheeler more than DeGrom. It's just you sleep better at night with Zach Wheeler because he's totally healthy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Which I'm sure is why James took Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Let's move on over real quick. Talk a little TGFBI. I am doing that one. You are not. Shame on you, but that's okay.
Sorry.
Yep. Sorry. I'm just writing down that it's there because I'm trying to mark where we're going with these things. Let's remove that screen, and then we will add the draft board to my TGFBI league instead. I'm drafting out of the 13th spot. It was my 13th choice, so it tells you how happy I am with that spot. But it's not that bad. The only thing that's bad is the pace of this draft. It's not great. I am team 13. Interesting here that I didn't have the choice I thought I'd have. Ronald Acuna went 9. Kyle Tucker went 10, just like I took him before. Ozzie Albies went 11. Luis Robert went 12. So I could have taken Corbin Burns in the first round, but I was afraid that I wouldn't get my power speed guy. So I was looking between Ohtani and Mookie Betts. I ended up going Ohtani. I would have taken both of them, to be honest, in part because I passed by Ohtani and LABR, and I thought that was a slight oversight. I'm very happy with Woodruff where I got him in the second round, but he went like pick 24 to Dr. Roto, who did great to get him there. I would value taking him there, but I thought in my particular instance, I wanted one of the elite power speed combo guys, and they were drying up in a hurry.
Yeah, I think this has turned out really well for you off the top. Like Ohtani's, like I'm not the Ohtani guy this year at all. I won't have any shares, but at pick 13, that's great. I haven't had any picks yet late in the first round in drafts. So, and Ohtani usually goes more middle. Ohtani usually goes more middle of the first round, and I would rather take Garrett Cole or actually Corbin Burns or Kyle Tucker or something like that, or Bryce Harper. So for him, but Ohtani to last for 13, I would have taken Burns probably. I see why you took Ohtani, but then to have Burns make it back to you, like that's amazing. Right. I would have taken Ohtani. I might have taken Ohtani and hoped for Woodruff to make it back to me. In the end, Woodruff went before Burns, which you rarely see, although I get it. Like it's fine, but I wouldn't do. I would way rather have Burns. I think that's great.
Yeah, and I got a little lucky. Burns did. I got him at 18. That's his max pick in TGFBI, and probably it's close to one of the high max picks in the NFBC universe. Woodruff went one pick before me, and I can't blame that pick. Woodruff's going to throw more innings, so I get that, and I love Woodruff. Obviously, I love him. I took him in LABR, so I like Woodruff a lot. And in fact, I like him better than Buehler. I like him better than Mad Max. I like him better than Wheeler. Woodruff is my SP3, so to say it's crazy I got my SP2 instead, I mean, that's fine. But it was interesting. Devers, Freeman, and Betts also went. I was kind of hoping for an Ohtani Betts start, but I'm certainly happy with Burns. And taking Burns or another pitcher there really opens up the build for hitters in 3 and 4, which I like the hitters available in rounds 3 and 4 a lot better than the starting pitchers than I do at the back end of 3 and the start of 4.
So, okay, in your draft, like getting Whit Merrifield, like you've really gotten some guys way later than their ADP. Like Ohtani, right. You got later. Burns, like you said, you got way later. Whit Merrifield at pick 43.
That's aberrant, without a doubt.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I've taken him in the second round, like late second round in drafts. So for him to fall to there is incredible. Xander Bogaerts isn't an incredible value at that pick. He's just a really solid guy. Like you're around his ADP.
Let's talk about that pick for a second, because I thought that was an interesting. Merrifield, I mean, it's not really that interesting. He's speed, he's multiple positions, and he came late. I had a tough call on at 4-3. I went Xander Bogaerts, but I had Sal Perez available to me. Will Smith had gone. Real Muto went 3-7, so he went relatively early. And the fact that and Will Smith, the catcher, went at 4.2. Again, I love Will Smith. I was actually low-key disappointed. I wanted to take Will Smith there. Because I flag plant with him and I have him in LABR, but I really struggled with that. I just decided to go with Bogarts over Perez. I know Perez played virtually every day last season. I don't see that necessarily repeating.
I would have taken Perez. The thing about it, I've heard that argument, and I totally agree with it. The thing is, Perez could regress by a massive amount and still, as a catcher in round, could still make what a catcher needs to make for round 4. Like, he could regress a massive amount and get 33 homers and 90 RBIs and 70 runs, and that's totally good for it'd be fine for a round 4 catcher. And maybe you get 37, like, he's going to regress, but maybe you get 37, 38 homers, you get 100 RBIs. So I would have taken Perez over Bogarts, especially because, not that Bogarts gets you steals, but you have a really nice setup there to take a 0 steal 4th round guy, because you have 30 steals or so with Merrifield and you have 20 something steals with Ohtani. So I think you could have afforded to do that. I don't think I would have looked at any of the pitchers. So if I was in that spot, I would take in Perez. I don't think Bogarts is a bad pick. He's not going to let you down or anything. I think that's a fine pick. You only have one pitcher, and the closers are starting to go. Like, Iglesias went.
They went late.
These closers
way late.
Yeah, Iglesias at the end of round 4. That guy's another guy, the guy who picked first in yours. I don't like the Mondesi pick at the start of round 5, but Trey Turner first overall, fine. For him to get Zach Wheeler and DeGrom on the 2-3 turn,
fantastic start.
And then Iglesias in the round 4 is amazing. I don't love them. I don't understand the Mondesi pick when you already have Trey Turner. I get maybe because there's an overall component to this, and he's thinking Adalberto Mondesi at 140 games is the kind of guy who helps you win an overall. Right. So he's taking a chance on that. I probably would have just taken, like, Nick Castellanos, who went with the next pick. Someone like that. Like, someone who's just
or Arenado, who went 4-4 or 5-4, or Eloy at 5-5.
Yeah, pick your guy, but like someone who's just really solid. So I think that's probably what I would have done. So just looking at your team now and like where it's going to go. Oh, by the way, I did want to mention, I don't mind the pitchers late in round 3-4. Like, I'm cool with Giolito. Like, we kind of talked about him a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
like if
I'm warmer to him now than I was before the start of this podcast.
Yeah,
but
and Nola was one pick away from getting to you, and Alcantara is usually down there. Chris Sale went really early in your league. Actually, he went before Nola and Giolito, which is unusual. So now you're 3 picks away. What are we thinking here? Another pitcher?
Yeah, there's 3 people picking, and I'm 4th. So here's the thing: closers have gone later. Iglesias went at 4:15.
A little later.
That's pick 60. He never goes pick 60 unless you're in this for an overall contest league. He never goes this late. Kenley Jansen went as the 4th closer. Emmanuel Clase went. However, Presley and Edwin Diaz are still there, which that's well beyond ADP. Top 2 guys in the default queue. So I think it's not like they're going to get overlooked by the people drafting before me. But if my competitors choose to pass on them, I'll be left with a tough dilemma. The best available hitter, and I think it's by a lot, is George Springer. I don't care that he doesn't run. It doesn't matter to me at all.
No, you have some steals. It's fine.
Right. After that, there's a slew of second basemen, which I don't really need or necessarily want.
Altuve, etc. Polanco's gone, but yeah, Altuve be one of them, right, on that list of second basemen.
Yeah, that would be. But I don't really want Altuve there. I'd rather go.
So you're thinking closer or Springer, and if you get unlucky, then those 3 guys.
Those 3s are gone, picks. And I'm dropping all the way to JD Martinez, at least in terms of ADP, because I think he's the best pure hitter. I don't think the starters that are available are too distinguishable between each other. I think if you look at the best available starters at that spot,
Gossman.
I think it's Lance Lynn, it's Gossman, Logan Webb, Joe Musgrove. I'll get one of those guys in the 6 if that's the route I want to go.
Yeah, totally.
So I won't be going the starting pitcher here in the 6. Newsflash. I know all my competitors are listening to this live right now, as we wait for our picks to go. By the way, in this league, and I don't want to, it's not any person in particular, but this has happened multiple times. We're like one of the last teams right now in TGFBI in terms of pace. But the thing that tilts me more than anything right now is seeing the little green light next to a person's name saying that they're in the room. but they've been on the clock for a while. And then he goes and picks. That's
While
amazing.
we were on the clock.
Bam.
Okay, nobody else
Flashing. Jose Altuve just got drafted.
I brought him up. I was trying to put him in Team 10's head. Okay, so
you
now
manifested it. I like that.
So this is this is not going to be week 2 of a 3-hour podcast, but there's 2 more picks until there's 2 closers and there's Springer.
So I've got it Presley, Springer, Diaz. That's the order I want them in.
Okay, so if Presley goes, you'll take Springer and then chance it maybe that you can get a closer after.
Yeah, and I might just go Springer because he's easily the best hitter available.
Well, also the thing is, if they were all there, I would take Springer because there's a good chance that there's only 2 teams on the turn. Like there's a good chance that Presley or Diaz gets around the turn. And if you're willing to open your mind to one other closer, I don't care who it is, whether it's Chapman or
it is Chapman or Will Smith are the next 2 closers.
Romano.
Yeah, Romano too, because Kenley's already gone.
So if you're willing to just open your mind to even the possibility of one of those, if you got really unlucky, then I would take Springer and then just hope Presley or Diaz makes it around the turn too. And if
I don't think there's any chance Presley Diaz make it back to me. That's the thing. And I don't think any of the 3 make it back. I think I'm going to get one of them.
That's right.
So do I take the closer and then just accept Martinez and hope he comes back? I could go Rendon or Bregman if I want to go that way, or go starting pitcher. I think I'm just talking myself into. I think I'm talking myself into Springer here more than anything. But I know, or just accept that I'm going to go late on closers. That's the other thing I could just do. Ray Flowers was on SiriusXM talking about how unlikely it is that closers repeat from year to year and getting 30 plus saves, and why it's kind of a fool's errand to chase that high level closer. And you see that by the way he drafts. He never drafts the high level closer. Kenley Jansen.
And to be clear, like we just jumped when we went from my league to yours, from a draft and hold to a league here with Fab and a massive contest where some people are going to bow out by the summer if their team isn't doing well. Like you don't have to prioritize saves as much in this format as you do in an NFBC without, but
more so than in LABR.
I guess
because you can trade for it.
Yes, exactly.
We traded for saves.
And so you want to prioritize it a bit, but like you could find, if you only come out of this with one closer you like you might be able to find another closer during the season.
Correct.
You have the Fab option that I don't have in that draft and hold, which is why Raisel Iglesias basically went the 2nd round in my draft and hold. Right. So I've talked myself into Springer if he's there, and then hope that one of the closers you like comes around the turn.
Correct.
I'm leaving this draft board open even when we're done recording tonight, so that I can check it later tonight or tomorrow morning. Please do.
And I know we've got Lepore and Johnson coming up in front of me. That's Justin Johnson, not Brad Johnson, who's also in the league. We have 2 Johnsons in our league, so it's not. It's kind of confusing, but so very interesting to see. We'll see what happens there. So that's where we are in TGFBI. Hopefully we get to these picks soon, and I make at least 2 more picks tonight would be nice. As we wrap up the podcast, we got a couple of questions. Ready to hit them?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Writing down the time again so people know what they want to go to a certain point to see. Let's start off. Mark asks about, I don't know a lot about his injury, but would Josh Young's injury lower his dynasty value at all? If so, how much? I mean, yeah, it's got to, right? I mean, it's enough that it required surgery. It's enough. Anytime someone needs surgery, it changes long-term value.
Probably depends. Yeah. And I mean, it probably depends to where you're at with your dynasty team. Like if you were like how far off, like if you're in a rebuild or if you're contending, now he kind of maybe fits more the profile of the team that's in a rebuild and can wait for a while for him to get back from this injury and be back to a full-time player.
Yeah, that's right. Paulie asks, on a draft and hold, given the circumstances with free agents, do you value players with jobs higher than the current free agents, or do you just go with skill set? Good question. I'm leaving it up there for you.
Yeah. So
for a second.
That is a really good question. So it depends. It depends on the point in the draft. So, okay, to take it to the furthest extreme, it doesn't matter that Freddie Freeman's a free agent, right? Like
Mhm.
he's going to sign. Maybe we get lucky and he signs on a team that with a great hitter park. Maybe we get a little unlucky and he signs on a team with not a great hitter park. He's going to sign. He's going to sign on a really good team. He's going to hit second, third, or fourth in their lineup. So it doesn't really matter with him that. But and then there's like the mid-level guys, maybe who are free agents, but we know they're going to get starting jobs. It's more the lower end guys. Like a good example, you took Jonathan VR in our labor draft. He's hanging around late in draft boards because we just don't know.
Right.
You could get lucky, and like a team like Baltimore could say, "Hey, Jonathan VR, come in and play full time for us, and hopefully build a little bit of trade value, and we'll flip you in the summer." And you might get a few really great months out of him, or a good team might say, "Come on in, Jonathan VR, you're our utility bench player." At which point you're actually going to drop him because
Yep.
and someone else will pick him up when someone gets hurt and he's got a full-time job for 3 weeks or something. But that's the level I think that really I took a couple of free agents in that labor draft. I took Eddie Rosario and Jorge Soler, who are both still hanging around as free agents. Now I'm just assuming both of those players get jobs where they will have mostly a full-time role, but
I think that's a safe.
it
I think that's
factored
a
into
safe
my thinking a
assumption.
little bit. If I had someone, when I took those guys, if I had somebody on my list ranked even with them who already had a team, I would have taken the other guy. But I didn't. They were the highest ranked guys on my list. I didn't want to jump like lose the value. There is also, because of the NLDH and this current amount of free agents, once you hit a certain point in your draft, you start finding players who are vulnerable where if their team signs a player, they move now to the bench and a
Yep.
reserve role. So
Right.
it does, at a certain point in the draft, it does cut both ways with some of these players.
Right. And obviously closer jobs, that matters a lot.
I think you took Connor Joe. Is that right? In our labor
I
draft?
did. I
Good,
did.
good. I think good pick. But he's a great example of that. If the Rockies don't sign any players, which they shouldn't because they suck, like they shouldn't sign players. They should let Connor Joe play. Let Garrett Hampson play.
Well, Jerry McMorris is fighting for the right not to sign players right now. He is on the front lines, fighting for Connor Joe. That's
That's
why
right.
he's doing this, Fred. It's for the Connor Joes of this world.
So
It's
if he
courageous.
wins, if he wins and Connor Joe doesn't sign, or Connor Joe's team doesn't sign other people, then Connor Joe is great. But he's at that level of player where if the Rockies just went out and if they grab Jonathan VR or if they grab a couple veterans,
I'm ready. I've got it covered. I got VR too. We're good.
You've got VR covered. Yes. So
Soler and Coors Field, though.
So if they signed a
That'd be
Soler type
sassy.
player, that might push Connor Joe and you're like back to him playing 4 days a week, and now you don't want him anymore.
Right.
So
Well, and then, but you know what? It's a 20+ pick. Fine.
yeah.
Move on to the next guy.
Totally. So I guess the long answer is actually mostly you just draft the skills. And with all these unsigned players, I think that from the question that we were asked, you draft the skills for the most part.
Yep. I think that's right. All right. Last question from JLD on Twitter. Any pitchers you bump up with a shortened season? And then he puts in, one Baz with a smiley face. Shane Baz is a possibility. Maybe. I think that's almost hope casting there with that question. Is there anybody you pick? I wouldn't do any young pitcher. I wouldn't bump them up at all because, any chance they spend some time in the minors, it's just less time in the majors. And, the Rays do manipulate service time. We know this. So he's not a guy I would bump up for the shortened season. It's the guys coming back for injury. Those are the guys I'm bumping up because it's just less time for them to miss.
Jacob DeGrom, who I drafted a couple hours ago in Tout Wars. The season hasn't been shortened enough yet for it to matter. And even though we both think it's going to be shortened, I don't think I'm going to change my approach until such time where it's been shortened by, it'd have to be more than a month. If it's even still a 5-month season, I'm not going to change it much. But as it starts to become, I made this point to someone on Twitter yesterday. We were talking about Fernando Tatis, and I said, the shorter the season, the closer Tatis comes to being I don't have him first overall, but if the season got short enough, I would make him first overall. And the reason is basically every time he does anything on a baseball field, he could hurt his shoulder. So to take it to the furthest degree, if the baseball season was shortened to one game, Fernando Tatis would be my first overall pick because the odds of him hurting his shoulder in that game are minimal. If
Right.
it was 5 games, he'd still be my first overall pick. 10 games, he'd be first overall pick. 162, he was not, because that's a lot of wear and tear. So those
Right.
injury-prone guys, as the season shortens, that's just less chances for them to get hurt. And that does impact Jacob deGrom, assuming he starts off the season healthy. It's just if he only has to make 15 starts in the end to have a full season, we'll see where this all goes. He's got a better chance of surviving that than he did 30. So
100%.
That's where we're at. And like you said, and Ronald Acuna goes way up if the longer the season gets delayed.
Yeah. I think you're right about that too.
Yeah.
All right. Good questions, all. We ran a little longish. Friday night tend to do that. Who knew? With no news.
We've got time. I think we both
all we
know
have is time right now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Who knows? We still didn't get to my pick, but we got closer. We got one pick closer to my pick in that time.
So I didn't know that.
No,
we got the Altuve. I thought you meant we got
that's the one pick.
One. Okay.
In an hour and 20 minutes, we had one pick, which is actually, that's actually not even doing it justice because it was more than an hour and 20 minutes because there was time before we started too. But that's been my experience in this league. So that's okay. It's not about that. Put
yourself on auto pick. Set a good example for these guys.
Oh, I'm going to, because I'm going to go play tennis. So, and I'm not going to make them wait while I'm playing. So I got that going for me.
Good.
Thank you everybody for listening. We do appreciate it. It's actually therapy for us to talk about these sort of things. And hopefully you guys get some value out of it too. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the feedback. Thanks to the WinBet for the sponsorship and to Thrive. We'll be back at you again next Tuesday, probably with a lot more slow draft results in the books. No doubt about that. And maybe we'll have some good news too. Who knows? Thanks for listening. Have a great day.